Thousands of Xcel customers are still in the dark about why their power was shut off this weekend and why it's taking so long to get turned back on. We took their questions to the CEO, who says it's a learning curve for him too.
This is a tool of last resort.
After kicking a reporter out of their state assembly, the Colorado GOP is now taking aim at Republicans who disagree. A push to improve rail safety in Colorado has some critics worried about a conflict with the feds. And elementary school students in Cherry Creek asked the real questions about today's eclipse.
We're setting up a water bottle to see if it'll explode.
It's the kind of hard-hitting scientific reporting you'll only find here on Next. Far from the path of totality, Xcel Energy is continuing to offer total darkness to some customers tonight. Don't worry, much like the eclipse, it's coming to an end soon. Xcel crews are still out in the field tonight after a wild and windy weekend prompted thousands of preemptive outages across the Front Range and the foothills. Turns out, though, getting power back on, easier said than done. As of this evening, Xcel's outage map still shows some 19,000 or so customers without power. Xcel said more than 500 crew members are still working to inspect lines, repair damage, and restore service. An Xcel spokesperson told us this afternoon that some outages may last into tomorrow, especially in places like Arvada and Boulder. Again, most of those outages were preemptive outages. Xcel chose to cut the power to those lines to prevent them from sparking during this weekend's wind. This is the first time that the utility company has shut down power lines, in this case, just in case, in Colorado. And it won't be the last. Our resident Xcel Energy expert, Marshall Zellender, is live and talked with Xcel Colorado CEO about why, including you right now, Marshall, are still in the dark.
Yeah, we're still getting feedback from viewers who have no power and they just want to know when they can turn their lights back on. Even though our meteorologists were predicting heavy extreme winds midweek last week, Xcel did not notify many customers proactively about proactively turning off the power until it was one day before they turned off the power. Why wasn't Xcel also at the beginning of the week preparing customers for what ultimately the decision was to turn people off ahead of time?
We acknowledge where there's opportunities to communicate sooner, and will work to do that going forward. We've heard that same feedback that you're conveying. This is a tool of last resort. And so we weren't making a definitive decision. We were seeing the same weather, but we know that that weather is likely to change. And we don't want to necessarily cause unnecessary concern and panic if we're not definitive about taking that step of last resort to turn off power.
In our last interview, I pointed out that you like to say safe and reliable. By turning off power proactively, de-energizing lines, does that mean you do not believe your lines are safe and reliable?
No, it doesn't mean that at all. What it does mean is that we see wind speeds that are beyond what is the norm and what equipment would be designed to withstand, coupled with very low fuel moisture.
From noon to 6 p.m., Xcel restored power to more than half the customers that were still waiting. The Public Utilities Commission regulates Xcel, and Rebecca White, the director of the PUC, told me she wants immediate Xcel customer feedback on Xcel's customer outreach. What kind of communication do you want to see from a utility like Xcel?
Part of what I want to ask the public, would you rather receive a notice of a possible outage, even if that doesn't occur, or not know until it's very likely are going to occur?
Is there a timeline if power is not turned back on, whether it was purposeful or damage, where the PUC would start issuing punishment, fines, having a hearing, something like that?
There's nothing in our rules that say X number of hours power needs to be turned on. We certainly hold the company sort of overall accountable for getting power back on as soon as they can. I believe they are doing that in terms of this incident over the weekend. People will notice that you have lights on where you are right now. Did you ever lose power at your home?
I did not lose power at my home, and maybe your next question is that because I work for the company? It has nothing to do with it. It's where I live.
I didn't ask that follow-up question. I just asked if he ever lost power. We've gotten some feedback from several viewers, including Kay and Mike, reaching out from dark neighborhoods that have underground infrastructure, power lines buried in the ground. And they wanted to know why they're dark if they have underground power lines. There are a couple of answers. One is it's possible beyond the neighborhood, the infrastructure is actually above ground. And secondly, it may have been purposeful or it may have been damage to lines that were above ground. My favorite feedback, Mark, is from a viewer who sent a screenshot of their email inbox. The bottom one letting them know their power was restored. The top one, 24 minutes later, a reminder from Xcel to pay their bill.
Good timing from Xcel on that one. So, Marshall, how many people who had their power purposefully turned off now got it back on again?
Well, I know who's still out, so I guess I could do the math in reverse. This was a struggle throughout the day to get this answer from Xcel, but they finally got back to me about a half hour ago. Of the 55,000 people who had their power purposefully shut off, about 5,000 still have it off, so 50,000 have it back on. That's among the almost 20,000 that are still waiting for their power to be turned on.
You can yell at me when you come back here for making you do math on live TV. We're journalists. That's hard.
Reverse math.
Yes. Marshall, thank you. The Colorado GOP is doubling down on their decision to kick a well-respected journalist out of their state assembly this weekend. Today, the state party is publicly attacking their own Republican candidates and lawmakers who say that was wrong. A sheriff's deputy and event staff has escorted Colorado Sun reporter Sandra Fish from the GOP's state assembly in Pueblo this weekend. Delegates were there selecting primary candidates and voting on primary policy. GOP chair and congressional candidate Dave Williams told multiple outlets he denied the Sun's coverage of the party was, quote, unfair, and that he planned to block 9 News and the Denver Post from the assembly for the same reason. We should note that 9 News was not at the assembly on Saturday, but several outlets, including our partners at Colorado Politics, were allowed to stay throughout the weekend. The editor of The Sun says Williams has not approached the outlet with any examples of unfair or inaccurate reporting. Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle also took issue with the ejection. Republican State Senator Barb Kirkmeyer described Fish as a fair and honest reporter before calling her removal a, quote, blatant disregard for our Constitution. Deb Flora, Republican candidate challenging Congresswoman Lauren Boebert in an upcoming congressional primary, called it a violation of the First Amendment. The GOP has since attacked both Republican women on social media, accusing them of, quote, bootlicking. Not to be overshadowed, of course, the GOP also voted on several policies this weekend, including a resolution to censure the Republican voters who launched a legal effort to remove former President Donald Trump from the ballot. A majority of the delegates supported asking those voters to leave the party. A railroad safety bill in the Colorado legislature is moving about as slow as a freight train. The measure would increase safety on railroads and was introduced the first day of the session. Now our Jaleesa Irizarry shows us lawmakers are still trying to get more people to hop on board.
Transportation is a constant work in progress. No matter what mode, some believe things could always be better.
The word I would use to describe rail safety in 2024 is critical.
Carl Smith is with SMART, a union for some of the rail workers in Colorado. Lately, he's spending less hours on the railroad and more time in the House of Representatives.
Trains are safe, but we feel we can make it safer. And this common sense legislation, we feel, does that.
HB 1030 will create new railroad safety requirements. Some of those include limiting the maximum length a train can operate, reducing the amount of time a train can block a crossing, and adding track sensors to better detect problems with a train. In 2023, a train derailment in Ohio spilled hazardous chemicals and caught fire, forcing thousands to leave their homes and causing lingering health concerns. Smith says the goal would be to keep incidents like that derailment from happening.
We want to mitigate as much risk as possible for the safety of all of us.
But not all agree with Smith.
We're speaking of federal preemption here.
Lisa Frizzell, a Republican state representative, fears if this bill passes, there may be a federal preemption, which is when a state and federal law conflict. GOP leaders feel if these regulations go into place, it'll drive rail companies away.
I find it egregious that we would make Colorado an undesirable place to run freight through. It is too important.
What happens is impacting citizens.
Smith thinks there is room for this bill to pass without federal preemption. He hopes that's the direction it's going in.
So Colorado can lead and establish safety in our communities and set the background for the whole nation.
We reached out to Democratic State Representative Javier Mabry, the sponsor of this bill, to find out a few more details, like who will pay for these railroad sensors and how would limiting rail cars at the state line work. But we have yet to hear back. Representative Mabry has said federal preemption has come up, but he says they have worked with the AG's office and experts who were involved in the Federal Railroad Safety Act to try and avoid that issue. Mark?
When something bad happens, it's the first responders who are always first on scene. How does this bill impact those people?
Yeah, this is something they definitely wanted to address with this bill, because we saw it in Pueblo, right? A situation very similar where, we had a hazmat situation. They want to make sure that these first responders are trained. So that's actually also included in the bill, to make sure that they are required to have, I believe it's a yearly training, to make sure they know how to respond correctly and safely.
Jaleesa, thank you. After months of deliberation, Denver Mayor Mike Johnston's picks to lead the city's public safety agencies were approved by City Council tonight. You might recognize them because they're all the same as Mayor Michael Hancock's administration. Denver's police chief, sheriff, fire chief, and public safety director will all keep their jobs. City councilors unanimously approved all of Johnston's picks, but said the process of hiring and rehiring for the city's top jobs needs to be more transparent. Mayor Johnston reappointed them after months of review, including a recommendation from a transition committee and internal surveys of public safety employees. But the city would not release those surveys to community leaders and media outlets who asked for them. City councilors did get to see those surveys, but still questioned the transparency of the process. Now they're requesting follow-up reviews from a third party.
I see it necessary that we do not just reappoint and move on, because the people of Denver are too important, and we owe it to them to ensure that we are stewards of this city, that we're upholding their safety and well-being as a priority.
But I do not believe we've made it clear enough who we are putting in leadership and why. And I would like to see increased access to community and employee feedback, as Councilwoman Gonzalez Gutierrez has referenced.
The mayor's office said the vetting process included public town halls and that appointees, quote, know the community inside and out. They also say withholding the surveys is in line with Colorado law, which protects advisory materials prepared for elected officials from being released. I want to say a quick thank you to all of you and everything that you have done to support a one-of-a-kind cafe, ensuring that our neighbors in need can access food and opportunities. Kyle's on the road from Totality with an update on this week's Word of Thanks microgiving campaign.
Thank you for being with Next while I'm away, and thank you for your generous support of Same Cafe, So All May Eat, the cafe on East Colfax that allows people who can't pay for their meal to volunteer in the kitchen and get valuable job training in the process. You raise more than $12,000 in weekly contributions. Monthly donations to the Word of Thanks Fund are going to push that total close to $30,000 raised. You're nearing the $13 million mark raised for Colorado's nonprofits. If you know of a nonprofit that could use our help, email me next@9news.com, and I will see you on Wednesday for our 200th consecutive week of giving.
Weeks after Colorado officials touted strict new regulations for the Suncor refinery, environmental groups are pushing them to do more. And there's a lot we don't know about space, especially during an eclipse. Like what happens to a Jolly Rancher in the stratosphere? One elementary school asking the tough questions. Next. It's a tale as old as time, or at least as old as the Suncor refinery in Commerce City. The state brags about cracking down on pollution at the refinery before environmental groups come in right afterwards and say, that's not enough. Last month, the state health department announced a new water quality permit for Suncor. It's the first time the state has limited the levels of PFAS, also known as forever chemicals, that Suncor can release into Sand Creek nearby. The permit also requires Suncor to limit releases of other toxic chemicals like benzene and arsenic and send text notifications whenever spills occur. But a coalition of environmental groups is now appealing that permit, arguing that the new PFAS limit is actually way too high and based on outdated EPA guidance. They also argue the permit gives Suncor years to comply. Kathy's in with the weather tonight.
Oh,
Kathy, did you look up and see the thing in the sky today?
Oh, it was pretty amazing, right?
And we have until, 2045 is the next one, and that one supposedly passes right over Colorado. We have that to look forward to.
Yeah, just a little time to wait.
Just a couple years.
It was a beautiful day, Mark, in Denver for that partial eclipse here. Great visibility, blue skies, light winds, just a fabulous afternoon. And really a nice way to start this new week with temperatures very comfortable. And we're done with that wind event. Oh, you know that I'm talking about that big wind event on Saturday that created blowing snow in the mountains and, well, created a lot of damage along the Front Range. We're tracking a weak storm for the middle of the week that might bring a few showers, rumble of thunder, but then 80 degrees. Our first 80-degree reading is certainly possible this week. Some of the damage from that Saturday windstorm, pretty remarkable when you consider we had gusts to near 100 miles per hour from Boulder to Marshall down to the Copper Mountain area. Winds are really calm now this afternoon. Out in northeastern Colorado, we're seeing some mild temperatures, but also a little bit of wind today. We're tracking a low pressure system to the north and one to the south that may generate a few light snow showers, but no advisories for travel and really just light accumulation expected. In Denver, there'll be a few clouds rolling through tonight. We go mostly sunny tomorrow, a really nice day coming up. This evening will be pleasant with temperatures in the 50s. Tomorrow we move into the 60s. Wednesday, a stray shower, mid 60s Thursday, then close to 80 for Friday, Saturday, and for Sunday.
I'm sort of like that science guru geek guy, and I want to see how long it'll take for the balloon to be swallowed by the eclipse.
A science guru? He sounds like the right guy to answer our burning eclipse questions. Next. That doesn't get you excited for the 2045 eclipse, I don't know what will. Every year, STEM students at Fox Hollow Elementary School launch experiments high into the sky tethered to a helium balloon. So while everyone else was staring up at the sun this afternoon, they were looking at their balloon. They're asking the big questions like, did the eclipse change the taste of my Jolly Rancher that we sent up? Our Brian Wendland investigates.
Balloon launch club, I hope you guys are excited. You sound excited. Are you ready?
Yeah! It's the solar eclipse, and we're launching a balloon to the edge of space, so.
We're gonna have such a great launch. The weather's beautiful. The experiments are all set up.
They're good. We're testing each other. They're cool. I remember faintly a 2017 eclipse. I was like going into kindergarten, so like 4.
It's amazing because it's a whole culmination of weeks of preparation in the STEM classroom, but then they really just take it over when they get out here.
Okay, so this one's done. This one still needs running.
So this year with the eclipse, we put up 2 special experiments. One was an astronaut with a solar panel on the back, and then we also sent up some twinkle lights that have a light sensor on them. So hopefully it'll get dark enough up there for the lights to turn on, and that'll be really fun to see.
I see an orange ball and like tiny circle starting to color it up.
When you look at it now, you can see on the circle of the sun, there's black covering it, and so that's a sign that the moon is coming.
I see it as a radioactive orange pancake that the moon's taking a bite of. We're almost ready for launch.
But when we start to lift it, make sure you've got a tight grip on it.
Yeah, everything's done. Everything's done. 3, 2, 1,
It's going. It's going crazy. You know, it'd be so disappointing if the sun's light got too strong and it just suddenly went KO.
I'm so proud of them and impressed because they really do just take on the leadership aspects and they know what they're doing and they take it really seriously.
Do you see the balloon?
So I'm super proud of them.
Look.
Yeah, I think so.
A radioactive orange pancake. That's the best description I've seen. Thank you, Marissa. We're back with your feedback. Next. Your feedback tonight. William says there are 3 to 5 major wind events along the Front Range every year. Many of them occur during winter, kind of like we saw with the Marshall Fire. Is Xcel going to de-energize every single time? We asked Xcel this. They told us that this wind event was especially powerful, top 3%. That's why they shut down this time, though we will see more of this coming up.